All right, I think we're recording now. Welcome back to the Iron Sharp podcast, guys. This is episode 6. I've got a really special guest on today. First of all, it's just myself. Jules and Tyler are at the gym this morning. They're doing some painting, finalising the finishing touches before we can open up to full capacity. Episode 6, we've got Jayson Mathiou. I've known Jace for a long time through a few different things, football, uni, mutual friends, his brother. Jace is a very prestigious physiotherapist. He's had a lot of opportunities to work internationally with some high-level athletes. I think it's really important that we get people like Jace on just to share some additional knowledge for those elite athletes and what it can take to be an elite athlete, but then also share his story about his experiences and I guess how he's got to where he is, where his interests lie outside of his job, and just some cool experiences he's done. So Jace, tell us a little bit about yourself. I'll shut up for now.
Mate, I don't know how I can follow up that introduction. That was very nice of you to say those kind words. But thanks for having me on. Like you said, we've known each other for a long time through many different ways, from you playing rugby league with my brother and us going to university together and having mutual friends and whatnot. But in terms of, I guess, my story and how things have progressed from me working in Australia, having my own mobile massage business.
I remember that.
To then getting opportunities to work in many high-level rugby league teams, from the Sydney Roosters to then working with the Brisbane Lions, and then taking more of a special interest in golf, because I played golf at quite a high level growing up myself, and that was always a passion of mine. So when I was able to start working, and at the start it was all for free. Like, I did years of free massages for Golf Australia, Golf Queensland, at different tournaments. Like I said, in rugby league as well, and even in athletics. I worked with the guy who won the Stall Gift.
Yeah, right. Didn't know that.
Yeah, Murray Goodwin. If he ever listens to this, he was. I was there when he won the Stall Gift, and it was quite exciting because it was very different to anything I'd ever worked in before.
Yeah, right.
And then I continued to network and reach out to people, and I got given an opportunity to work at a golf tournament, and that's when I met some golfers, and just through networking, building relationships, I was able to be offered an opportunity to travel overseas to China while I was still studying at Griffith University. And I took that opportunity. And then that was a bit of a gamble because I wasn't guaranteed any money or anything like that. But I did it anyway, just because I thought, you know what, this could lead to my dream job, or if I invest now in myself, I know in the future that's going to pay off. And I think that's whenever I talk to people, or whenever I've listened to people who are much older than me with way more experience, investing in yourself is going to be the best thing you can do.
Absolutely.
So I kind of tried to do that early on in both my business and in my professional career. And then as I continued to build more networks, you'd remember I was traveling a lot through university to go and work with these golfers on the LPGA.
Yep.
And then years went by, I became a physiotherapist, continued to work full time on the LPGA, and then got an opportunity to move to tennis. And for the last 2 years, I've been working with well, they weren't number one when I first started working with them, but they're now the number one doubles team in the world. And last year they won 2 Grand Slams.
Unreal.
So that's kind of
That's sorry to cut
my
you off.
quick little summary there.
And that's something I've always admired about you, Jace. Like, you've been able to back yourself, not in like an egotistical way, but like being confident in your ability to do things. And that's something that, like myself, I struggle with at times. I know plenty of others struggle with as well, is just having that confidence in yourself to back yourself to go do things. And as you said, you've been able to get all these opportunities. You haven't been gifted these opportunities. You've worked for these opportunities. As you said, you've worked free for a long time and built your networks up, and they got you to where you are today. Take it back a little bit, back to your golfing days. Why golf? Did you always play golf when you were younger? Did your oldies play golf? How did you get into golf?
Yeah, well, actually, my dad, when he was playing professional rugby, professional rugby players get a little bit of time off during the day, so Absolutely. They either play video games or they learn to go play golf. No, that's a little bit of a joke. Some of them, continue to study and do plenty of other work and stuff like that. But my dad, he enjoyed playing golf, and so he'd always take us along. And my sister and I, we really enjoyed playing golf. And my brother was more into the rugby league. And then when I was like 10 years old, I was like, okay, I enjoy rugby, but I know I'm better at golf, and I'm sick of I used to get really easy blood noses. So every time I'm playing in the UK, when it's like winter and the grass is just rock hard, I mean, you're wearing those metal studs and they're not even making a dent in the grass because it's so cold. And like first 5 minutes, get hit, tackle from behind, smash my head on the ground, just blood bin in the first 5 minutes. And I was just like, come on, like I can't be getting a blood nose every game. Like this is a bit of a joke. Yeah. So I really enjoyed golf, and I thought that I was going to be better at that. So I continued along that path.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. As you said, with your brother, I grew up playing footy with, well, not grew up playing footy with Benny, but I kind of started playing footy with him in under 12s, and that's where we met a few handy footballers in our time as well, and Joy Arrow and a few of those other boys. I don't know if you remember. This is going back a long time, Jace.
Okay, let's see it.
So, actually, I'll start with asking you the question: who's the better fisherman out of yourself, Benny, Joy, or me?
Well, I remember that it wouldn't be me. That's for sure. And I think that Joy thinks he's pretty handy. But you were the one who lived by the water. You had the boat. I remember going to your place, being on the river there.
Yeah.
I think that you would have to be the best fisherman out of us.
Benny's pretty handy.
But it would.
If he listens to this, he'll tell you that.
Yeah. It would. No, but my brother, I think, would definitely be better than Jai and I.
Yeah.
I mean, Jai's. I love Jai like a brother. I see him as a part of the family, and he's a great rugby league player, and I'm so proud of him. But when it comes to fishing, I think
no good.
It's nearly as good as his haircut right now.
I don't mind it. I actually don't mind it.
You like the mullet?
I don't mind it.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's not bad. So the next point I got here, like obviously you got a few different sporting background, or you've worked with a few different sports. If you could work with one sport, what would it be? Like, what would your dream job be, I guess, in sport? You probably live in it now, to be honest with you. Like, that's fair enough if you want to say that. But if there was another sport you could work in, where would it be?
Well, do you know what? Like, I'll always have a soft spot for golf because I played it at a decent level. And as a physiotherapist working in golf, I could speak to coaches and they would be talking about, specific drills and whatever. And I could look at it not only from a physiotherapy point of view, but also a player's point of view.
Yep.
So I could say, okay, well, let's change this drill because they have a wrist injury, and instead of using a sand wedge, we're going to get a 7-iron, and we can do the exact same thing, but there's not as much loading through the wrist. And I think it just gives you that extra added advantage that you can relate a bit better.
Absolutely.
So I would always be happy to work in golf again. In terms of what I'm doing right now, I really enjoy tennis, and I'm not going to say I enjoy it more than golf, but what I really enjoy about the tennis is the physicality of it, in terms of a match could go for 1 hour or multiple hours. The
Yep.
schedule can always change, and so you really need to get, like, load management nearly becomes an art rather than just a science as well. It's easier to work in sports where you have a set schedule and a set structure every single week, or because you can track things so much better. And if you're not doing a good job when you have a set schedule, well, I don't think you deserve to be there. But when you work in a sport like tennis, where you can, not only it's more physical than golf, so the demands in what I'm doing with them in the gym or whatever can sometimes be higher, but also learning how to manage their load when they have back-to-back matches, or when they have a match on the night and you think it's going to be at 7 p.m, but then matches go later and you're playing at 1 a.m, and then you have to do recovery and everything and then play the next day. I mean, it's quite thrilling to be in that environment. So I really enjoy what I'm doing right now. And honestly, I probably wouldn't change it.
Cool.
I do miss the team environment. Like, I think it would be great to work in a rugby team again, or, in an American sport, whether it be NFL, basketball, whatever it is, because I love being in different environments and learning new things. But I think if I went to a team sport, I wouldn't want to just be a physiotherapist. I'd want to be more of a high performance manager.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think for yourself, because you've been so successful in pretty much anything that you've jumped into, I think wherever you were to go, you would be successful in it, just because you do have that work ethic and you do have that confidence behind yourself. So, mate, I think if you were to stay in tennis, that's great. But if you were to give an NFL a crack, I'm sure you'd fucking kill it, to be honest with you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Do you think, it was a hard transition going from golf into tennis, like as far as like your athletes, I guess, physical preparation?
Well, I think that's where, like, I have to say I really like Griffith University was good for what I needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
exactly where you're going with that.
And the thing is like, the reason I say that is because in a lot of physiotherapy programs, you don't get at least the scientific background of having an exercise science degree. An exercise science degree scratches the surface on what you should know. But if you have an insight into exercise science as a physio, and then look into it yourself because you know how to research, like, university is good at teaching you how to research, how to analyze things, how to make your own reasoning and critically think. So it's not going to give you all the answers. University is not going to do that. It's not going to make you the best practitioner, but it's going to give you some of the skills that, if you are hardworking yourself or you're willing to apply yourself, some of those skills are going to come in very handy. So what Griffith gave me was the ability to be aware of exercise science and then critically analyze things. And so when I made the jump from golf to tennis, I was able to, I feel, get up to speed a lot faster because I had that exercise science background.
Yeah, cool. How do you go with, as you said, with the tennis schedule is very like hectic. You could be playing, as you said, it's late at night one day, then short turnaround for recovery, and then a game the next day. How do you go managing like training loads? Do you have much? You don't have much to do with you would run all their strength conditioning, I guess, components as well with the boys in the tennis doubles. How do you manage like training loads with that?
Yeah, so they have a fitness coach in Colombia,
Okay.
but he doesn't travel with them very often.
Yep.
Last year he came for 2 events, so when they're on tour, I do all their strength and conditioning as well as their physiotherapy.
Yep.
But when they're back in Colombia, they will train with him, and I'm not going back to Colombia very often.
Yep.
So when they're with me, I have some of my own, physical testings or readiness evaluation that I do with them. I was doing a bit of handheld dynamometry stuff just to look at if there were specific changes in values, how you can use those numbers.
Yep.
But also the thing is I'm working with two guys that are 32 and 33 years old. And so they're very much aware of their own bodies and the schedulings themselves. And we've built up a good enough relationship and awareness of each other that I can, because a lot of these questionnaires and whatnot, it's kind of very much hit and miss. But when you try and use some objective data with understanding your athlete very well and the subjective data, you can, I think, balance things. And that's where I say, like, you can't just use the science. Like when you work in tennis, it's also an art, and that's what I enjoy. But sometimes it's difficult, and I'm sure like there's times where I may have got it wrong, like for sure.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you try and use the available science you have and apply it to your athletes in a way that works in with them.
Yeah, and sorry to cut you off. It probably comes down to the athlete as well. Like they're the best in the world for a reason. Like they didn't get there by accident. You didn't, like, as good as a practitioner that you are, you didn't get them there. They got them there. So like you've helped them get there. So
I'm a 1%er.
Absolutely.
Like that's what I say. If I'm 1% make them better, then I've done my job. Like I think the biggest thing that I've been able to help them with is just a little bit of their structure in and around their daily routines.
Yeah.
And just them having someone there who's always in their corner saying, okay, let's do that. Or I think sometimes when you work in professional sport, the best thing you can do is know when to do nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, good one. I like that. Absolutely.
Too many people, when they work in sport or high performance, they come in all excited. And it's funny because one of my friends, when I first started, like at 19, going to a golf tournament and working with these athletes, he called me Keener because I was too keen. I had too much enthusiasm. I was too excited, and he was like, all right, you can relax, Keno. Like this is the way that things run.
Yeah.
And that's where I've been very lucky. Like I've had people steer me in the right direction with that. And I think the most self-assured, whether it's strength and conditioning coaches, physios, or coaches in general, know when to intervene and know when to do nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that frustrates me, like looking at Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. Whilst I might not be the elite level S&C coach, like I've been around it long enough and I've had enough of an understanding to see when S&C coaches are trying to claim like the success of the athlete, they're going, yep, that's because of me. You know what I mean? So, as you said, definitely knowing when to shut up, knowing when to open your mouth is really important. And I think, like, another thing you touched on there was with your mentors. And that's something we're trying to instill in our guys that work with us is finding a mentor. And like kids that are 16, 17 years old, they don't care. Like they go, oh, yeah, mentors don't mean shit to me really. But getting that in from a younger age, I wish I had more mentors specifically to where I was traveling at a younger age. I've had some really great mentors over my time, but it hasn't been until I've gotten older, 21, 22, 23 kind of thing.
Yeah.
That mentor is really important. So next one, obviously you're joining us today from Montreal in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Montreal.
Correct.
I didn't mention that at the start. So you've traveled all around the world. What's one of the favorite places you've been to? Like has it been Colombia? Has it been because of the scenery, or has it been like Montreal again because of the scenery? You've been everywhere.
Haven't been everywhere.
I'd hate to see your passport. There'd be a million pages in that thing. Stickers everywhere.
Actually, I just got a new passport this year. I had no more stamps.
Run out of pages. Unbelievable.
Well, do you know what? I'm going to give a not that fun of an answer, but like there's different places around the world that I love for different reasons. Like some people might not like Colombia the way that I love Colombia, but I love Colombia because of the people that are there and the way that they've shown me how the locals live. Like the guys that I work for are Colombian, and so there was a time there where that was like a second home to me. So I lived as if I was Colombian, and that was one of the best experiences ever. But like I have like say in regions, right? So in South America, I would say Colombia. In Northern America, I'd have to say Montreal. Otherwise, my girlfriend won't be too happy with me. In Europe, I would have to say it's a very tough one. I love Croatia in the summer. Like that kind of area is beautiful. And yeah, they would be some of my favorites.
Unreal, nice. Next one here, obviously, as I mentioned to you earlier, our main demographic is targeted towards a younger audience, that 16, 17 age bracket, really. Few older guys as well. So most of our audience for this podcast are actually their parents. So if you could give some tips for a junior athlete, what would you say? Like, would it be to find a mentor? Would it be to focus on your core work? Would it be to focus on your squats, for example? Like, what's something that you would think would be really valuable to a junior athlete coming through?
Well, to a junior athlete coming through, I think it would be very good to work with someone like yourself.
Oh, stop it.
So we'll say that first and foremost. And honestly, the reason for that is because I think that you need to find a strength and conditioning coach at a young age who's going to keep it fun.
Yep.
And, you know, there's the problem with sports is that there's so much pressure at a young age these days that they lose the fun too early. And I think when you lose the fun too early, there's a higher probability or chance that if you do not make it, that's when you see anxiety, depression, you know, loss of self-identity and all these things, because at a young age, it's just, that's their whole life.
Yeah.
So I think that when you find the parents are keeping it fun, keeping them in multiple different sports to maintain their athleticism, having a good strength and conditioning coach who's not just going to do a bunch of banded exercises, or on the other spectrum, just going to make them a power lifter. Yeah. You really need someone who has a good awareness of incorporating multiple facets of athletic development, keeping it fun. Yeah, so I think that's important.
I like that one too, like that early specialization. If you're focusing on being a rugby league player from the age of 10, you're kind of missing you're missing out on a lot of opportunity where you could be trying those other sports. Like when I was younger, I wish I got into surf life saving. I wish I got into gymnastics, all that kind of stuff. That probably, it's hard to say now, but it likely would have helped me as a rugby league player once I got older. All those extra physical qualities. Absolutely.
You look at golf, for example. Dustin Johnson, he could have got a scholarship to play college basketball. Yep. And then you see him playing golf now, and people say, "Oh, golf is not a power sport," but you see him, he's big, he's strong, he's had so much athletic development from basketball, from vertical leaps and stuff like that. It makes sense that he has gained some skills that are making him better than the rest of the field. I think.
Oh yeah, you go.
Yeah, no. I think that's important.
Yep. Next one, I haven't really got much of a list here. I'm kind of just doing it on the fly as I do.
That's perfect. Perfect.
The thing I'd be interested in, you've worked with, I'll say that again, you've worked with heaps of different athletes, different personalities, really elite level athletes too. What's like a common trait you've found that all these elite guys do have, even though they're very different personality wise, they might have different strengths and different weaknesses. Is there a few things or one thing even that you've found in common with all of them?
It's pretty tough, man, to be honest. Because, I think to be an elite level athlete or to be elite in any domain, whether it's you as a strength and conditioning coach or myself as a physio or someone who wants to be a CEO, you have to have a level of selfishness.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't want to admit that. But the truth is, if you're dedicating 24/7 your life to something, that's for your own self-reward. And you need to be a little bit selfish, because otherwise you're going to take advice from this person, that person. You're going to take your distraction away from this person, that person. So I think that you need to be a good human being. And I'm lucky that I work with athletes who are good human beings. But you also need to know when to be a little bit selfish or when to be dialed in and focused and be able to block out the distractions. And I think that the best athletes that I know when to switch on and say, okay, I'm focused, I'm being selfish, this is me. Rather than there's great athletes as well, but they're just 100% selfish and self-centered, and they're not the type of people I want to work with. Whereas I think having that quality and that switch to turn it on and turn it off, that's what the best have. Absolutely.
And that's something, again, we're trying to instill into our guys. We've said it in a few previous podcasts, making that switch, as you said, when it's time to work, you work, and focusing on what needs to be focused on for that specific time. There can be other things.
But it's important to switch off and be a good human being.
That's what I was just about to say. Yeah, it's important to switch off and know when to switch off as well. I know myself lately, like the last couple of weeks, I've been flat out 100%, 24/7. And even my wife, she says, "Oh, you need to calm down a bit. You need to." So I'm hoping to take some time off in the next couple of weeks once this gym gets going. So yeah, cool. Who's been your favorite athlete you've worked with?
Oh,
they probably won't listen to this anyway. So
they probably won't. But honest, the two guys that I work for now, I've never had so much fun or fulfillment working with the athletes that I work with now, because they're Colombian, and the Colombian culture, although sometimes you have to really get them out of that relaxed state, because they are very much, as they say, tranquilo. But it's very relaxed. But they really treat me as if I was one of their family members. So, when COVID hit and we knew that we weren't going to be working for a few months, they were always making sure that I was okay, and that whatever I needed, it was sorted. And I've spent Christmas with them the last couple of years because I was doing preseason with them. So I'm very lucky that they treat me as if I was a part of the family, but also we have this good working relationship that the respect hasn't been lost.
Yeah.
Because I think with a lot of athletes, there's a fine line when you become their friend, you can lose respect.
Yeah.
So you have to remember that, okay, yes, you're traveling with these guys, most of the year and whatever. But you can't lose that you're the coach and they're the athlete. Otherwise, I feel like that
Maintain that authority, hey?
Yeah, the relationship dynamic changes and not for the better. But I've been very lucky that, these guys do treat me as if they were a part of their family, but we know when to switch on and when to switch off. And I'm very, very grateful for that.
Yeah, cool. All right, mate. Well, I might just move on to the 5 questions that we ask every guest on the podcast. I've actually written them down this time. The last couple episodes we've done, I haven't written them down, and I'm kind of making them up on the spot, just from memory. So I gave you some to prepare, so we'll get to them in a minute.
Yeah.
First one is, if you're on death row, what would your death row meal be? Your last meal.
Ooh.
Now, this could be a really tough one for you because you've eaten probably so many different types of food from all over the world. Could be a half an hour.
well, honestly, it'd have to be.
You can't say your missus is cooking, and you can't say mum's cooking.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Well, honestly, it depends on the mood that I'm in because, like, right now, like I'd love to be back in Australia having a barbecue.
Yeah, cool.
So, like, right now, I would take a very, very well prepared steak, medium rare, nice thick, with just like a good salad. I know you said I couldn't do my mum's cooking, so I'll say I made the salad.
Yeah.
Then maybe some sweet potato fries on the side.
Sweet potato fries, how good. What kind of steak do you eat? Is anything, or do you have a specific cut?
I like a ribeye.
Yeah, same.
I like a ribeye
steak, really.
I don't mind either.
I've been on the tomahawk steaks lately, the big ones.
Oh, nice.
The big bones. Cost a fortune, but they're worth it. Absolutely worth it.
All right. I'll have to send you a photo. At one of the tournaments that I was working at in the players' lounge, they had tomahawk steaks.
Oh,
so I'll send you a photo.
Yeah, I'd be all over that. Next one is your favorite all-time athlete or sports team.
Okay, so I know I'm probably not allowed 2, but I'm going to give you 2. My favorite all-time sports stars are Rafa and Tiger. And the reason why I like Rafa so much is because when I'm there watching him in practice, like, it's as if he was playing a game every single time. Like, his intensity in training is insane. Yeah. Like, it's crazy. Like, when he's training and he's getting ready or whatever, like, if you're playing a practice set against him, you're not going to win a point. Or if you do, like, he's going to make you win it. Like, he's not just going to give it away. Whereas the thing is with some athletes is when they're practicing or training, they don't play at the same intensity, Yeah. So that's what I really love about him and his fighting spirit. It's everything that I love. And I mean, Tiger, because I've been a golf fan since I was born, and just seeing him being able to dominate the way he did and then have all the controversy he had and then come back and perform the way he has performed, for me, it's just like, it's phenomenal. Like, his mindset to be able to go through that is just crazy. Insanely impressive.
I love, like, I'm not a massive tennis fan, to be honest with you. I love watching Rafa though. I love watching Djokovic as well, but Rafa is probably my favorite to watch. Absolutely, for that exact same reason. He's an intense guy. Everything that he does, 100%, full effort all the time, no letting off. So.
Yeah, well, you grew up playing rugby, so you have that fighting spirit, like when you play on the rugby field, that intensity. And I feel like there's very few, I guess, players that would show the same intensity as Rafa. And so, like, growing up in a family of rugby, we're more, we like to see that
Absolutely.
that spirit, you know.
Absolutely. All right, next one. If you could have dinner with two people, dead or alive, who would they be? And it could be dinner, it could be a beer, it could be coffee. Who would it be? What would you talk about?
Well, I honestly would love to have dinner with Tiger, and I would love to have dinner with Bill Gates.
Yeah, nice. What would you talk about?
With Tiger, I don't think we could talk about anything that's appropriate for this podcast. No, with Tiger, I just would want to say, like, you know, how did you turn things around? I
Yeah,
mean, your whole world was ripped apart. Your body went to nothing. Like,
yeah,
how were you able to overcome all these obstacles? How were you able to have such mental clarity through the toughest of times? Like, I
yeah,
love hearing stories of people who have been at the top and then been at the bottom and then come back to the top again.
yeah, yeah,
So I would love to learn about his mindset, how he prepares, what he does differently now to before.
yeah,
And in terms of Bill Gates, I would just love to see what it's like to be on the other side.
yeah. Absolutely.
How he lives life, what he thinks, how he sees the world, where he sees the world going, what he feels is important, what he feels isn't important.
Yeah,
Just on a whole life perspective, I
yeah,
think it would be very interesting.
absolutely. All right, next one. If you could go back in time and give some advice to a young Jayson, what would you tell him?
Um, Enjoy being bullied because it's going to give you thick skin and it's going to prepare you for the world, because out there in the world, you think high school is tough or whatever, being bullied is tough. It's nothing. Try traveling on your own where you have zero support and you're stuck somewhere and you need to problem solve and there's nobody there to help, or been, you know, multiple different situations that I've had that if I didn't have thick skin, I wouldn't have
Yeah.
survived it.
All about resilience, hey? And that's something they're pushing in schools now, is building that resilience at a younger age, which I think is really important.
Yeah.
Bullying is very prevalent from primary school all the way through to high school, and building that resilience is really important, as you said, for when you're later on in life. Last one. You'll love this one. If you could have a rapper or an artist of any genre write a song about you, what would they say? And who would it be first, and what would they say?
Well, I don't know if you would know some of the rappers that I listen to these
I don't
days.
know. I don't know.
So I listen to a bit of reggaeton.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I don't know if you know of Nicky Jam.
No, I don't know that one.
So Nicky Jam, he's big in the Latin community. There's actually a documentary on him on Netflix. He has quite
Yeah,
an interesting story.
yeah,
But I went to a Nicky Jam concert, my first concert in Bucaramanga in Colombia, like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, before he kind of became big.
yeah,
Well, he was already like big-ish, but not big,
yeah,
big.
yeah, yeah.
And that was my first introduction to that style of music. And then so I started to listen to him all the time.
Yep.
I would be surprised if there's anyone listening to your podcast who knows who he is. But if he was to say something about me, it would, I don't know, about my travels or
Yeah,
like some of the funny stories, or like I'd want it to be pretty, you know, lighthearted and fun,
yeah, yeah. Cool.
and
Well,
have that little bit of Latin flair in there, you know.
geez, that would have been an experience. A
Yeah, it
concert
was.
in Colombia. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it was crazy. We were in this stadium, and I for sure I was the only, um, you know, white guy in there who definitely didn't look Colombian. And I remember leaving, and because it was one of my first trips to Colombia, I think it was like 6 years ago, and my mum was like, "You said you were going to stay in the hotel. Like I just just saw you uploaded this video on Facebook of you with like thousands of people around.
Wow.
That was a bit of a laugh.
I don't know if you can share any, but what would do you have like a favorite story, like from all your travels? Is there like one like real funny story or something that's happened to you that you would want to share with us?
Funny story.
I'm sure you've had heaps. I'm 100% positive you've had heaps, actually.
I think I've had some. I was talking about this with someone the other day. Just random things that happened that. Like I remember I had a week off, and a friend and I decided to. We were traveling from Amsterdam to Berlin, and we were on. We speak no German, and we're on a train, and we get to like this stop, and everyone gets off the train, and we're like, so where do we go from here? People are talking in German. We're out in like the countryside kind of thing, and the train had stopped for like repairs, and so we couldn't continue to go, but nobody had told us. So cut a long story short, we ended up meeting some Germans and staying out in the countryside and just being in like a random place, drinking German beers, not understanding a word, and it was not even ending up at the destination that we were supposed to end up at. But we were just like, you know what, it is what it is. Let's just go for it.
So the Germans are pretty friendly people then?
Well, I have some German friends who are very good to me, but I think it's like anyone in the world. There's plenty of good people in the world, so just got to find the right ones.
That just reminded me of a story. Like my wife and I, we traveled to Japan 3 years ago now, and again, same kind of thing. Had no idea where we're going. In Japan, there's actually a lot of English signage everywhere, so you're kind of okay. But we got on the wrong train one day, and it just so happened to be a bullet train. And went in the complete opposite direction of where we were intending on going. And I said to her, like, oh, we need to get off this at the next stop. Like, I don't think we're going to the right spot. I'm following it through on my phone. Like, I see where we're going. Got off at the stop. No one was around at all. There was one sign completely in Japanese. And I said to her, we're just going to have to legit just take the next train in the direction that we just came from and just hope for the best. And it worked out. Like, jumped on the right train and we're back at where we started. 4 hours later. So
that's the best thing about traveling though is being in foreign situations and seeing how you handle it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard, as you said, like when you don't have that basic understanding of language, you don't realize how important it is. I'm sure you picked up some languages over your time. Are you learning French at the moment, I think?
Je parle anglais et un peu français.
Does that mean you're no good at French?
Pretty much.
Sounds good.
I'm trying to learn a little bit because my girlfriend is French Canadian, so her family and herself, her first language is French. Which I'll tell you a funny story. I had been to Canada 5 times, and before I realized that Canada is actually a bilingual country and there's people in Canada that speak French. And it wasn't until I was like 23 and I'd already been to Canada a bunch of times that I met someone and they were like, I'm French Canadian. And I'm like, French Canadian? What does that mean? And I'd already been traveling for ages. So, cool. So we'll see how we go. Right now, I can understand a bit, and that's what I said to my girlfriend. You have to be careful now because I'm understanding more, but I struggle to speak.
As long as you know how to say toilet and exit.
Exactly.
All right, mate. Well, thank you for your time. Really do appreciate you sharing your insight, particularly like as you said, working with those elite level athletes and sharing those sharing that really insightful information about those guys.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, and I hope some of your listeners, even if there's one listener who gets something out of it, then I really hope that they enjoyed it, and keep doing all the stuff that you're doing. I'm really proud of you, mate, and it's awesome to see you getting your gym up and running, and I'm sure you're going to get some good results.
Hoping to, mate. We're hoping to. Thanks for your time, mate. We'll have to catch up for a beer or a barbecue when you get back.
Sounds good, mate, for sure. Tomahawk, I like it.
Let me know.
All right, mate.
All
I'll
right.
speak to you soon.
See you, buddy.